I can't speak from personal experience because I don't have any kids, but I can only assume that elementary school in the 2020s is a lot different than it was in the 1980s. Long gone are the days of that rolling cart with the VCR on one level and a big old box TV on the top of it. Long gone are typewriters. Long gone is penmanship class, cursive that I learned. But no matter when you went to school, when you started school, if you sit back and think right now, you've got some initial first positive memories of school, whatever they might be, whether it was recess or certain friends you met or nap time in kindergarten or the first foods you liked at lunch, pizza, chicken nuggets, or that scoop of mashed potatoes that held its shape so well. In the last 20 years, computers have become so common in school that kids that are going to school now couldn't imagine there was a time without them. For me, I started school in 1983. Yeesh, yeah, I know, it's a long time ago. I believe it was second grade when I had my first exposure to computers, the Apple II. Way back in episode 53, I did a segment about early 1980s educational PC games, and I did a quick look at the Oregon Trail, but I knew that wasn't going to be enough. We had to do a deeper dive, a little bit about what made the game special, because I can only speak for me, but I think I do speak for a lot of you that grew up in that time period. That educational game, it captivated our minds. And it also brought forward, it was learning through playing video games. It brought the historic westward migration of the United States to life. It was adventure, strategy, learning. And I don't know, if I had to make a toss-up between watching the TV with Reading Rainbow or something, or playing Oregon Trail in second grade, I might choose Oregon Trail. But before we go back 40 years to look at what it was like playing the Oregon Trail game, we've got to go back about 200 years to what the real Oregon Trail was. For those that don't know what it is or don't know the game, I'll give you some of what made this period of time perfect to be made into an educational PC game. The real Oregon Trail was a 2,170-mile route that connected the Missouri River westward to the fertile valleys of Oregon, and it was used primarily in the early 1830s to the late 1860s. The real Oregon Trail was a critical path for settlers moving westward in search of new opportunities, better opportunities, and land. But the journey was fraught with challenges, difficult terrain, unpredictable weather, and the constant threat of disease, which became apparent in the video game. Tens of thousands undertook that journey, and lots of them didn't make it, and they're buried along the Oregon Trail to this day. But it helped to shape the American frontier. So what could be better than being 8 years old and living on Cape Cod or anywhere in the United States in the 1980s and being able to sample a little bit of that danger, but knowing that you were one flick of the power switch from being safe? The Oregon Trail game itself was conceived in 1971 by 3 student teachers, Dan Rawich, Bill Heineman, and Paul Dillenberger. And it was a way to engage their students in learning about American history. As primitive as the Oregon Trail game in the 1980s might look to kids of today, the original was actually a text-based game, so it was even more primitive, played on a mainframe computer, and it simulated the trials and tribulations of a 19th century pioneer family. You travel from Independence, Missouri to the Willamette Valley in Oregon. Dan Rawich initially programmed the game to be used in his history class, and it quickly became a hit. He recognized the educational potential and later adopted it for the Minnesota Educational Computing Consortium. They're the ones that distributed the game to schools across the U.S. in the early 1980s. And with the advent of personal computers, it went from text-based to more graphical, I mean, it was very primitive with the graphics, and a lot of it was green and black. But to a kid in 1984, 85, seeing that and being able to play that, it was like the greatest thing ever. This was before Nintendo was readily available. Atari 2600 was readily available, but again, not a lot of kids had it compared to today where you've got games on your phone. I can't remember exactly because we're going back almost 40 years, but typically there was a group of 3 or 4 kids that would play at each computer. One of you would assume the role of wagon leader. You got to put in your name of you and everyone in your party, and you had to start to navigate your way westward. You had to make the critical decisions about when to travel, the supplies to purchase, how to handle the obstacles in the way. It really did help with critical decision making, despite it being very low risk for the actual kids playing. It incorporated the elements of resource management, risk assessment, and survival tactics. One of the most memorable aspects of the game was the educational value. We kids learned about the historical context of the Oregon Trail, the geography of the United States. This was the first time I learned about different landmarks in the United States. I mean, all I knew was Cape Cod, and more specifically, my town and the 2 towns surrounding it, basically. I didn't know about Fort Independence or Big Blue River or Fort Kearney, Chimney Rock, Green River, Snake River, all these different places. I didn't know anything about them. I just knew I had to defeat them to get to the end of the game. There was a lot of hardship in the game where you would have diseases. That was the big one. Dysentery, snake bites, broken wagon wheels. It became a lot of fun to be playing the game with your classmates, and suddenly you or one of them breaks their leg or gets dysentery. And it was funny because there was a bit of a disconnect because you could say so-and-so broke their leg, but in reality they didn't. So it became fun. Go out on the field at recess and say, you have dysentery. I guess that's not good. Spread that around the school. I know there was at least one time that we were playing that I died in the game, and I had to just sit there mad with my arms folded because I couldn't do anything. That's a big part of what made the Oregon Trail game such a success. It was the innovative blend of education and entertainment, and that made learning fun, and that's super important when you're impressionable, 7, 8, 9 years old. It's like you could go either way. If school seems fun, if learning seems fun, you want to really invest yourself. But if it seems boring, like you'd rather be at home sitting on the couch watching Price is Right, you're going to disconnect a little more. I'm not saying Oregon Trail made me a better student, but it definitely made school more fun. Because I wasn't just passively receiving information from teachers. Me, my classmates, you who played back then, you were actively participating in historical scenarios. You'd make decisions and see the consequences. Try to pack up your wagon and go across the river and just watch it get destroyed and sink. That was another big thing, was the replayability of the game. I don't think any time that I played in school that my classmates that we made it. Either we all died or we ran out of time and we had to go to lunch. And it made every journey on the Oregon Trail unique. There was always different challenges and different outcomes based on what you did. I still to this day can play Oregon Trail online, and it's still a lot of fun. Because now that I think about it, I don't think I've ever actually finished the game and succeeded. Oh no, that's going to be what I do later today then. The last thing that made Oregon Trail such a success was the simplicity and accessibility of the game. It was easy to understand. Me at 8 years old, I knew what the point was. Get your wagon crew to the West Coast. And it actually enhanced your social life. The people that you played with in your little group, even if you didn't know them, you had to interact with them, and maybe you became friends with them thanks to Oregon Trail. All of those reasons right there are why the Oregon Trail game has left an enduring legacy in the world of educational gaming. I'm figuring that the vast majority of you that went to school in the 1980s and 90s played Oregon Trail when you were young. And when I bring up hunting, going out there trying to hunt squirrels or bears or rabbits, or I bring up dysentery or broken wagon wheels or your wagon sinking in the river, you can close your eyes and picture it. If you go to OregonTrail.ws, you can play the game right now. You can pause this podcast, go online, and try to get your crew out to Oregon without getting dysentery. Naturally, I'll link to it in the description of the podcast so you can go and play it. Oregon Trail, it was a groundbreaking educational tool that brought history to life for a generation of students. I know it did for me. When I think of my first memories of school, especially positive memories, Oregon Trail is right at the top of the list. Did you play Oregon Trail? And did you survive? Did you win the game by making it to the end? I think my evening is going to consist of me creating a few friends and trying to succeed on the Oregon Trail.